Yeah, my grandfather, he was a voodoo man. I'll be in conversation with some of my guys that are super Christian, like Chance and them. I'll mention voodoo, and they be like, keep that evil away from me. Voodoo and other traditional African spiritual systems like Yoruba have been demonized to be made into this evil boogeyman because it's a brilliant way to control a people to make them hate their own God. If I can convince you to denounce and hate your own God and subscribe to my God, then I can convince you to do what my God said. That's why God in the Bible was used to justify slavery, because they would pinpoint and cherry pick pieces that fed a narrative. Turn the other cheek. Servants, be good to thy master. But really, like, ultimately, the African spiritual systems from Voodoo, Yoruba, it's really just systems of ancestor worship. They all believe that there's one single omnipresent deity, similarly to Christianity or Islam. There's a set of Loas or Orishas like Papa Legba and Mami Wata. You could almost akin those to saints. Christianity has all these different saints, these different angels, the Archangel Gabriel to have power on earth over human beings. The Loas or the Orishas like that is really not such a vast departure in the way that people be indoctrinated in monotheistic religion that feel like all the African spiritual systems are evil. Christians be killing motherfuckers too if they don't agree with them. Isn't that how they got Martin Luther out of here and Martin Luther King? Goddamn it! I guarantee you, the nigga that killed Martin Luther King considered himself a Christian, and then the niggas that killed Malcolm X.
The thing about this Vic Mensa guy, and when he's talking about the voodoo thing, we covered this before, and we'll probably have to, we'll keep covering it because it keeps popping back up. When he says, and I wrote it down, your own God, that already, you gotta think how insensitive of a view that somebody has their own God. So you got the Vikings over here, you got the Native Americans over there, you got the Aztecs over there, you got all these different people groups around the world in India and stuff like that they all just have their own God, or there's just a bunch of all these gods. Is this what a comic book? What is this? So the thing is that even the idea of saying your own God, what is this? We're basically saying that God just picks certain people and everybody else is out of there. That's not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible and even the God of the Quran, to a lesser extent, God is the God of everybody. The Christian God is not just a God for the Christian people. It's the God for over everybody. Whether you're in India, you're in Japan, whatever the case may be.
And you've seen that in the Old Testament. The Hebrews had a certain commandments, but I forgot what they called them, the Gentiles in the Old Testament, they had to go off 5 commandments for the same God and the God of the Bible.
Yeah, the Ninevites, you had all kinds of different people groups and stuff like that. And so the point is that when he says your God, so what does that mean, your God? That's the God of everybody? That's the God of just the people over there in Africa and that part that believe that type of God, the Iffa God or whatever. And I don't think he's really thinking about it deeply enough. I think he's doing a good job of trying to think deeper. And I'm a really big believer in questioning our assumptions. So when he's questioning Christian people and saying, why do you just demonize voodoo? I don't think most Christians can say why they demonize voodoo. And most Christians probably are never going to really be able to do that because people aren't studying theology like that. People probably know less now than they did 100 years ago about stuff like that. And so that's just the reality, but that's not an indication that something's wrong with the doctrine. It's just something wrong with the fact that we don't know, how to think anymore. We just think whatever somebody tells us. But I think but the reason why those religions from different parts of the world have been demonized is because the belief is that they're teachings of demons for a number of reasons, for reasons that we can get into that can be a robust intellectual conversation. A lot of these religions are considered pagan, meaning they worship creation instead of the creator. Whether it's they worship ancestors, which is creation. You see what I'm saying? If it's ancestor worship, that's going to be considered pagan because that's a created thing. An ancestor is a created being. If there's one of the big issues with Iffa is there's no real objective morality. That's one thing that really separates it from Islam.
You said no real, I didn't hear the last.
Objective morality. Iffa, like a lot of Eastern religions, is based off of balance and harmony. But the only person that can tell you the balance and the harmony is like some type of priest or whoever the religious people in that thing. It's not based off, like in the Bible, good and bad is based off the Bible and Christianity. And the Quran is based off of really the Bible and the Quran. Judaism is based off the Torah and things of that nature. So there's a thing that outlines this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, with few gray area. But in Iffa, good and bad is about harmony. It's about there's got to be some good, there's got to be some bad. So it's not objective. There's not objective wrongness in Iffa. So whenever you're talking about slavery or murder, or there's Christians that have murdered people and stuff like that. Iffa, is murder really wrong in Iffa, or is murder just a part of the overall balance? In Iffa, you need murder as a part of it, part of the balance. Every evil, whether it's trafficking, whether it's pedo, whatever that stuff is, in Iffa, it's all part of the balance.
Wow.
It's like a yin and a yang, right? Where Judeo-Christian doctrines will say, no, that's wrong. It's not a balance. It's wrong. God allows it on this earth for a season. Man brought sin into the world, but it's sin. It's wrong. It's missing the mark. There's a mark and it misses it. That's what sin is. So that's a major distinction. So yes, I will consider Iffa a more relativistic paganist religion. And that's not me speaking about it in a disparaging way. That's accurate. It's relativistic, meaning that it's not absolute. It means that wrong and right is not a real thing in Iffa. It's about harmony and balance. And so that being the case, you can never tell somebody, hey, don't do that. That's wrong. All you can say to them is, hey, that's throwing off your balance. That's throwing off your harmony. So it's about them. It's not about how it affects everybody else and the fact that it misses the mark of God. It's about it's not good for you because it's off. Your balance is off because of it.
Wow.
And you need these priests as gatekeepers on that stuff. Where the way it is in Christianity, priest or not, you know that certain things are missing the mark of God. So there's major distinctions here in these two different belief systems. And he is right. There is like an omnipotent God in Iffa. Now, I don't know how that parses out in specific ways. I never studied it deeply, but things I'm talking about as far as the relativism and the paganism of ancestor worship and stuff like that, they said you could liken it to angels, but you can't really liken it to angels because they believe these, or I forgot what they call them, orishas and stuff like that, have, or there's a god over this and a god over that. That's historically pagan. Just like in Norse mythology and Greek mythology, Roman mythology, there was a god over fertility, there was a god over this. And now the thing with Iffa, and it's unclear a little bit, but I guess the different deities, they have different names, but they're just extensions of the main god. So, it's unclear if this is polytheistic or if it's some kind of unique version of it, but it's not very clear. So I would say that I think he just hasn't looked at it deeply enough. And the thing about most people, they live around Christianity, so they think they have a firm grasp of it, but they don't know enough. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. They don't know enough to really know about it. They just know enough to really feed their narcissism about how much knowledge they really have. It's a certain haughty, pompous approach to doctrine and theology. So they don't know that much about Christianity, and they learn this other religion where they deep dive into it because it's new and it's novel. So they're deep diving into Iffa, but because they're not students of theology and philosophy itself, they don't know the right questions to ask. If I'm going to approach a religion, be it Hinduism, be it Jadeism, or any kind of religion, Iffa, whatever it is, I know what questions I'm going to ask the religion because I understand ontology and I understand epistemology. I know what I'm going to be looking for to figure it out, to get to know about it and to know how veridical it is based on epistemology. But I know what questions to ask because I understand ontology to some extent. Not as much as an ontologist, but enough to have a good grasp of what questions I should be asking. If you don't get that foundation and then you go into study different religions, stuff like that, you're going to be all over the place because you're taking your amateur understanding of religions and theology and philosophy and you're trying to extrapolate way more than you have the capacity and the tools to be able to. And so all that's going to do is just cause more confusion. But you're going to feel like you have this understanding that you really don't have. So I would just say with this Vic Mensa guy, he seems like a pretty sharp guy. He just seems to be ignorant about a lot of these things. And also a lot of us, because of the African diaspora and the fact that we have this blind allegiance to our melanin and Black existentialism, because it's that represents just the opposite of white imperialism and colonialism, white supremacy, we just tend to blindly go into it because at least it's not whiteness, and we associate Christianity with whiteness, even though Christianity is from the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it's all weird and it's all backwards, and we're not really thinking. We're just blindly going through it. It's almost like that story of the blind man who's filling on the elephant, and he feels the trunk and he goes, "Oh, this is a snake." Then he feels the back and he goes, "Oh, this is a hippo," because he can't see the whole elephant. And so it's the same thing goes for, we might feel one of the horns and thinks it's whatever has a horn, but a wildebeest or whatever. But my point is just saying that I think he means well, but there are definitely major distinctions, world defying and splitting chasms and differences between these two religions. And there are definitely a lot of similarities, but the devil's in the details in this thing. And I don't think he's prepared to have those kind of conversations. Here on the Vocal Soapbox, y'all, we get into that.